I did say that.
Welcome back to teacher.
I said, Okaeri, yutta yo? Yes. Okaeri, welcome back to my channel, Made Between the Pages. My name is Taylor, and today we're going to be doing the BookTube All-Star BOOKTERNET Charity Challenge. That's a long name. The creator of this challenge was Rachel Marie, and if you're not aware of this challenge, which I wasn't until I was tagged in it, she is a wonderful person, and she started this challenge to raise money for COVID-19 relief. So for every person who does this challenge up until May 31st, she will add €1 to a charity pot, which she will then donate to a charity of her choice, or I believe she's going to pick someone at random to choose the charity. So I think this is a wonderful cause, and I didn't know about it until I was tagged, so I'm rushing to get this done by the 31st and tag a couple people, see if we can slip some more in there to get some more relief out to people. I was tagged by Sydney over at Sid the Bookworm, so please go check out her channel, and also Rachel Marie's. I'll have them both linked down below. So for this channel, Rachel Marie created a checkerboard. So for this challenge, Rachel Marie created a checkboard, which I'll put up on the screen over on this side, where she listed authors or books that are all-stars here on the BookTube community, and you are supposed to go through the list and see which ones you have read, which ones you haven't read, and your thoughts on them. So I'm just gonna get started. The first one is Angie Thomas. She wrote The Hate You Give and On the Come Up. I do not own On the Come Up, but I did read it as an ebook, I believe. Audiobook? I don't remember. I think it was ebook. But I do own The Hate You Give physically, and I loved both of her books. The Hate You Give was a 5-star for me, and On the Come Up I believe was a 4-star. I thought both of her books really took on important issues that need to be talked about in our current world, especially when it comes to racial inequality in America. And while On the Come Up had a little bit of a different focus, that was the main focus of The Hate You Give. So we follow this main character, Star, who goes to a very privileged school, privileged rich school, but she lives in a very not so good neighborhood, poor neighborhood. So she kind of straddles both worlds. And then her best friend is killed by a police officer, and things kind of spiral from there. But I thought that the way Angie Thomas handled those issues was accessible to anyone, and it's a super important read, I think, for everyone to be able to see the perspective from all points of view. This book is a must read, so yes, I have read Angie Thomas. Number 2 is Shatter Me, the series by Tahir Mafi. I have not read this one. You'll probably notice a trend with this. I joined BookTube a bit late, and I'm also a bit older than I think most people are when they jump on the BookTube bandwagon. So some of these books have kind of passed me by, and some of them I am interested in picking up, and some of them I am not. And Shatter Me is one of those series where I am just not interested. I think I just missed the boat for it. I'm not opposed to dystopians, but the synopsis of this just doesn't pull me in at all, and there's a lot of other books I would rather be reading. So I love me some witty novels. She's one of my favorite booktubers, but I'm sorry, girl. I think I missed it. I missed the time in my life for that, so no, I have not read Shatter Me. Number 3 is Leigh Bardugo. Yes, I have read some of Leigh Bardugo's books, as you can see behind me. Well, why not just get them off the shelf for you? I have the collector's edition of both Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and I also have the physical copy of The Language of Thorns here with me. I do also own the Grisha Trilogy, but that is in America, not in my Japanese house, so I don't have it with me. But there's a good reason for that. These two books were the books that I read first by her. I skipped the Grisha Trilogy. Again, I think I just missed it. But these were the books that I read first by her, and I fell head over heels in love with them. I love these books so much. Oh my gosh, they're so close to my heart. If you haven't read these, I mean, I don't know where you've been, but read them. They're fantastic. We follow a group of misfits who have had a really rough lot in life, and they have to join together in this book to complete a heist. And I love bantery friend groups that have a common mission, and this series pulls it off amazingly. So after I read these, I was like, oh my god, Leigh Bardugo's gonna be one of my favorites. So I also picked up The Language of Thorns, which I was very lucky my library in Japan had this book. So this is a collection of short stories from the Grishaverse. And I mean, the naked cover is just, I mean, can we... I had to own it for myself because I love these short stories. I think this is a fantastic collection. They're haunting, they're beautiful, and they really are reminiscent of original Grimm's fairy tales. And the pictures also, if you see, they kind of start to creep around the outside, and then at the end of the story, they form a full picture. And it's just a stunning, stunning book. And after I read this, I was like, oh my god, she's definitely gonna be my favorite. And then I read the Grisha Trilogy. That did not go well. If you've watched my unpopular opinions tag, I mentioned in there that I do not like the Grisha Trilogy. I guess, again, it could be that I read it at a time when I was just kind of past that point in my life when I would have enjoyed it. While I was reading it, I did think, like, oh, if I had read this when I was like 16, 17, I would have loved this. But I hate Alina. Just, that character and I do not get along. I'm also not a fan of the Darkling. Sorry, guys, if I'm hurting your heart a little bit here, but... the Grisha Trilogy was just completely not it for me. Which is a shame, because I like the world that she established and I love her later works. So because I don't like her first works, but I love her later works, I'm open to anything else she writes. Except for King of Scars was a no-no for me. That was a big miss. So I don't think I'll be purchasing that book physically, even though it's gorgeous. So Leigh Bardugo is really hit and miss for me. I either love her stories and they're 5 gajillion stars, or they're like 2s. So we'll see what my future holds for Leigh Bardugo, but I'll definitely be, you know, picking up her works in the future. The next one is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I did read this book from my library. I read this and The Wicked King, and I haven't read Queen of Nothing yet, but I'm on the waiting list at my library, so I'm hoping to read that eventually. But yeah, they were good. When I was reading them, I loved it. It was like candy to read those, super easy to read, and they're quite short. So I really did enjoy the experience, and my feelings after were very tumultuous. There were some things I really enjoyed about it and some things I really didn't like. But by the end of The Wicked King, I knew I was going to be finishing the series. So, do I like it? Yes. Will I maybe buy it in the future? Possibly. But I don't think I'm in any rush to own it. It was pretty good. Number 5, The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco. I hadn't heard of this until maybe a week or 2 ago. See, this book, I know I've heard it floating around recently, but I'm not sure who said it. But the place that I did hear it from, whoever that was, really did not like it and trashed it. And after hearing that person, I believe, I can't remember who it was, but after hearing that review, I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna spend my time on this book. So I'd kind of written it off, even though the synopsis does sound interesting. I'm interested in a necromancer witch that sounds like an interesting story, but it's not something that pulls me in, so I don't think I'll be picking this one up. If you think I should really read it, if you really think I should, you can try to convince me in the comments, and you might sway me to put it on my TBR. But as of right now, yeah, don't think I'm gonna pick it up. The next one is Victoria Schwab, or V.E. Schwab. I have read some of her books. Right now I have City of Ghosts, her middle grade series, and I have the first of A Darker Shade of Magic physically. Now, this book I read as an audiobook, but I ended up getting it physically because my boyfriend's actually using this to study English right now. Middle grades are very good to study English with, so he's actually using this to study at the moment, so that's why we have this physically. City of Ghosts.
Ah, yeah.
And this series, I only own the first one physically, but I have read them all. I believe I got them from my library, or did I buy them? I might have bought them in ebook, I don't remember. But yes, I do have the first one physically, and these are beautiful books, so I may end up owning them all physically at some point in the future. But I do like this series, but it wasn't phenomenal, and I feel like that's like my experience with V.E. Schwab. Like, her premises sound amazing and get me really hyped for reading her books, and then the execution is like, yeah, Scythe. This series is about a world in which there are 3 different Londons. There is Grey London, Red London, and Black London. No, I haven't read this in so long. White London? Red London? White, I think. Bless my heart. Anyway, there's 3 Londons. One of them doesn't have any magic because it's lost it. One of them has magic, and one of them has been destroyed. Essentially, no one can go there. But this character, Kel, has the rare ability to be able to travel between the Londons, and he's kind of in the business of illegally trading goods throughout the 2 Londons that he can go to, and he kind of ends up taking something from one London to another that should not have been taken, and the story goes from there. Again, this premise sounds so good, but just something was missing for me. I haven't really been able to articulate what it was, but I don't know. The second book in this series is my favorite, and I think I gave that one 4 stars, 4.5 maybe, and then the first and the third one were maybe 3 stars for me. So it is really enjoyable, and I would recommend it to people who are starting to get into fantasy. I think it's a really good, like, you know, transition book if you're coming from another genre. But I haven't read her other series, so I would be open to picking her up if stuff that she's releasing in the future piques my interest, but I'm not like, oh, give me more of her works. Not really. So number 7 is The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I have read these and I love them. I don't own them physically, but when I discovered my library in Japan, this was the first series that I checked out, and it's just candy. It's so fun to read, it's so fast-paced, and I blew through all of them in like 3 weeks maybe. So that really kind of got me into the library system here, and I'm really, really thankful to those books for that. I don't have them physically, but in the future I'd like to own the new covers that just came out. I'll put a picture over here, but they're beautiful, and I definitely plan to pick those up. So if you don't know, The Lunar Chronicles is a retelling of Snow White and various other fairy tales. It's in like a futuristic, technologically advanced world. Next is Adam Silvera. I haven't read any of his books. I do have one, I think, on my Goodreads TBR. They both die at the end, I believe. But if you've watched my channel before, you know I am not a fantasy reader. Fantasy. That's all I read.
You are.
I am not a contemporary reader, and his books have never really pulled me in, so I can't see myself picking up any of his books in the foreseeable future, honestly. So, sorry guys. Next is Cassandra Clare. If there's a person who is the definition of a booktube sweetheart, it is this person. She has written the Shadowhunter series. I don't own any of them physically, but I have read The Mortal Instruments and The Infernal Devices, and I've read the first 2 books. Wait, is The Infernal Devices the one? Yeah, that's the one in the old times, right? What's the new series? Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows? I'll put it up here. That series. I've read the first 2 books, Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows, but I have not read the 3rd book, which is Queen of Air and Darkness. I am interested, but Cassandra Clare's books are, again, kind of like I've heard them compared to a CW show before, and I think that's a perfect way to put it. They're fun, they're like trashy and enjoyable, but I just have to be in the mood for them. And considering Queen of Air and Darkness is like a bajillion pages, when I'm in the mood to jump back into that world, I will, but it's not necessarily a priority. But I do enjoy her books. I love how the spines of her paperback books look. So in the future, once I settle down and get like a whole bunch of bookshelves, I may add those to my collection. The next book on this list is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. If you've seen my channel before, you know this book is just so close to my heart. It deserves all of the hype it gets times 1,000. It really touched my soul, and I don't own it physically, but I did recently buy it because I just have to have that book physically near me. I love it. Taylor Jenkins reads other book, the Daisy Jones and the Six. It was okay. I enjoyed it. It was a fun audiobook, but I don't think it's the masterpiece that Evelyn Hugo is. But I know a lot of people disagree with me on that. But if you have not read 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, please do. I know you've heard about it because everyone's talked about it, but if you haven't picked it up, I really truly think it could have a positive impact on your life. The next one on the list is Laini Taylor. I have not read any of Laini Taylor's books. I know she's super famous for Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares, and I have also seen, I think it's the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series, like here and there, and I am interested in reading them, but I did kind of miss when those first came out, like I wasn't around for that. So I do think that I might have missed the train with her a little bit, but those books are on my TBR because they do pique my interest. So maybe in the future I'll pick them up, or if she releases some new work, I would be interested in picking that up as well, just because it's so highly praised. Next one is Illuminating Files. Again, I haven't read it. I feel like a pattern is emerging here. I would be interested in reading this one because I love the Nevernight series by Jay Kristoff, and he co-authored English. I can't speak today. Co-authored the Illuminating Files series, and I would be interested in pretty much anything that he's written. Plus, I do want to get a little bit more into sci-fi, so I think some YA fantasy sci-fi mix series would be really good to get me into the genre. So I am interested in reading it, but it's not super high on my TBR. If I find it on like Book Outlet, or if I find it comes through my rotation at my library, I would definitely pick it up. But I have heard amazing things about it, so I'm open to reading it. Next is Scythe by Neal Shusterman. Yes, I have read this one. Woohoo! We've gotten to one that I've read. I really enjoyed Scythe. I've read Scythe and Thunderhead, but I haven't read The Toll yet. And I have both of those books at my American house. I did purchase them because I enjoyed them so much. I love the concept of the world. So Scythe is about a dystopian utopia, essentially, where humans have conquered death. And in order to have population control, there are people ordained as scythes who are allowed to kill people, legally, to keep the population down. So scythes go about this in different manners, different styles, but they do have guidelines. And we follow 2 characters who are chosen to be scythes and kind of their journey through this. So the political machinations and the world building were great, but the character work was not the best. And I have heard from other people that this is a thing with Shusterman, that his characters are not his strongest point, like character relationships, like romances and things like that. But because I loved the other aspects of these books so much, I'd be open to reading his other books. I think I've heard of one called Dry, which sounds really intriguing to me. So I would want to pick up that one in the future, I think. Next is Sarah J. Maas. And I have read Sarah J. Maas before. I own the beautiful Waterstones edition of Crescent City, or House of Earth and Blood. And I have a separate review up on my channel for this, so I'm not really going to go into it, but I ended up loving this book. I gave it 5 stars. I have read her other series. I have read the Court of Thorns and Roses series, and I've read up to Queen of Shadows, I think, in her Throne of Glass series. But I don't know, like some of her books I really adore. Like this one was 5 stars, A Court of Mist and Fury, I think I gave that 5 stars. But then some of her other books, like the first book in the Throne of Glass series, I really don't like that book, or the second one that much. The later books I do enjoy. I haven't finished that series, so I can't speak on the ending for it, but kind of like Leigh Bardugo, she seems to be hit or miss for me. I either really love or feel really lukewarm or dislike her other books. But I will continue to read, especially this series. And I do want to own the Court of Thorns and Roses series one day, because I really did enjoy the second book that much. But yeah, Sarah J. Maas is just fun. She's just fun to read. I've said this several times, but it's like book candy, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I'll continue to read her in the future. Next one is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I have not read this book, but I do have something going on my channel called the Retro Reads BookTube Challenge, which I will put a card for up here, where I put a bunch of BookTube, kind of like this actually, ALLSTARs or popular BookTube books in here, some of which I'm interested in, some of which I'm not. But every month I pull a new book from there and I read it to see what I think about it. So what I'm going to be doing with that is a review every 3 books that I read. So I have 2 more books to read before I do my next specific wrap up for that. But An Ember in the Ashes is in that cup. So I haven't read it, and I haven't read anything by Sabaa Tahir, but I am very interested to do so. So I really hope that that comes up. Maybe I'll pull it out, you know, for June. We'll see. 3 more. This next one is Shannon Maguire. Yes, I have read Shannon Maguire, and I love her works. I love the Every Heart a Doorway or the Wayward Children series. I've read every book in that series. The last one that she released, Come Tumbling Down, was the only one that was like, for me. But the other books she's released in that series, the other 4, are all 5 stars for me. The Wayward Children series is about children who go through doors, kind of like Narnia, but these doors open to all different worlds, and they find doors that match worlds that are perfect for them. But for some reason, they get kicked out of that world and have to come back to this world, this reality. And when they come back, they have a hard time adjusting. So they are sent to a school where they can go to kind of reacclimate to this world, or not, and just stay there. But the goal is reacclimation. And each book kind of follows a different kid who is there, and it's written so beautifully, and you can feel and taste and touch the worlds that you experience in that series. So I highly recommend it. The audiobooks are really, really good as well, so check it out if you haven't. I did not like Middle Game, which she came out with. It was just not for me. But I have really enjoyed some of the work she's done under her other pen names. So under Mira Grant, she's written Into the Drowning Deep, and I loved that book. Into the Drowning Deep is about killer mermaids. So I kind of mentioned before with the Language of Thorns, I like the original kind of feeling of fairy tales, Grimm's fairy tales, which are not like, pretty, and the original story of mermaids is not pretty. So this book, Into the Drowning Deep, works with that idea, and it's a bunch of people who go out on a boat, like a group of scientists that go out to figure out where a boat from the past went when it completely disappeared. And they're going to try to solve this mystery and see if there are mermaids, and they find them. And it's amazing. So I really do enjoy her writing, and I will 100% continue to follow, especially the Wayward Children's series, when she releases it. The next one is The Poppy War by Rf Cuong. Obviously, I own this book. I have read it. And this seems like something that would be extremely up my alley because I'm a fantasy lover. I love war stories and I love hard-hitting stories, and this is all of that. It even has a school setting. But it was not my favorite. I know this is really unpopular to say, but maybe I went in with the expectations that were too high, I'm not sure, but the magic system in this just rubbed me the wrong way. I really didn't enjoy the way that it was explained or explored. And while I do appreciate what Rf Cuong is doing by showing the true and real horrors of war and not glorifying it like fantasy does have the tendency to do, I appreciated what she was doing with that, but the world didn't pull me in. So when these horrendous things happened, of course they were horrendous and that shock value occurred, but I didn't really care about the characters that they were happening to, if that makes sense. And I'm a character-based reader, so maybe that was what was amiss for me for this. I think I ended up giving it 3.5 stars, and I haven't been interested in the second book, but the amount that people are raving about the second book and how it really builds upon what was established in the first book has me intrigued. So I may be picking this up, the sequel to this. I think it's The Dragon Republic. I may be picking that up in the future. Let me know down in the comments if you think I will like the second one based on what I just said about the first one. I'm really curious to know if I should go for it. And the last one, To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. I have not read these books. I did watch the Netflix adaptation. It was super cute. But I've mentioned before, I'm just not a contemporary reader so much. Sometimes I am in the mood for a contemporary romance. So these are kind of on the back burner for if that mood does arise at some point, but they're definitely not priorities for me. Sorry. So my final score is 10 out of 18. Not too bad, actually. I'm pretty happy with that, especially since, some of the other ones that I just missed the train on. It is what it is. This was really, really fun to do though. I really enjoyed this. So I'm gonna tag a couple people and try to get this up with at least 2 days or a day for you guys to be able to get this up yourselves and add to the charity donation. So I'm gonna tag people that I don't think have done it. If you've done it, my bad, I didn't do my research before this video. Yay! I'm gonna tag Sophia over at Spew Deserves Better. I'm going to tag Tammy at Tammy Tries to Read. I'm going to tag Benedict over at Ben's Blurbs. And I'm going to tag Lena from Sufficiently Advanced Lena. I'm sorry I'm tagging you guys at the very end of this, but I wasn't aware that this existed before, so if you can get the video out, amazing. If not, no pressure. I still think that this is a really cool video to make after the 31st, because I really want to know, what your experience is with all of these books. So please go ahead and make the video. I'd love to see it. And anyone else watching this video, consider yourself tagged. Get her done. But I'm gonna head out for now. Jane.